There he is, Dougie Fresh.
Hey, what's going on, Bri Guy?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Miami, I'm jealous.
Hey, I want to make sure my signal's all right and your signal's all right.
Can you hear me?
I can't hear you all that good. I don't know if it's me, though. Yeah, it shouldn't be me, because I got a full signal.
I can hear you pretty clear on your end.
Are you on your Wi-Fi?
I am, yep.
All right, we're going to see if we can get Dougie on there. I'm going to X out of Doug and then...
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, I got you now. Are you on your Wi-Fi?
I actually turned off the Wi-Fi, so I guess signal's better.
Okay, perfect. So if at any point in time, Doug, you can't hear me, let me know, because the place I'm standing has a high wind going on here. I want to make sure everybody can hear me, but I want to make sure I share the beautiful sunset with everyone.
To make me jealous that I'm stuck here in Pittsburgh and you're down in Miami. I appreciate that.
No, I just want to make sure you're saving your money and investing in it properly so you can come down here.
Find me some good deals down there.
Bro, there are some lots down here, waterfront, that are next to like $15 million homes. They're like the lots themselves are like $5 million. I think that's a killer deal. So if you want to go in, I have about 20 grand I could go in on with.
I'll throw in 10. I think they'll accept that offer, right?
Listen, I will lowball the shit out of them. All right, everybody. So listen, I am super excited today because we were talking about money. Money is one of my favorite things in the world. I have Doug Raible here, financial guru. Doug, for those of you in my audience that don't know who you are, can you please tell me who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, thanks for inviting me on here today. Hopefully we can help some of your followers out. But as he said, my name is Doug Raible, and I'm an investor as well as an advisor. I actually started investing when I was 18 in the financial markets. And when I was in college, I wanted to expand into different businesses and different investment opportunities. So I started learning about real estate. And when I was in school, I started out in the sales end and then got involved with flipping properties, rental properties. I expanded into lending and financing projects as well as brokering loans. A few years ago, I actually got my notary license, so I handle closings as well. Up to now, I've done about 125 real estate related deals. I'm the co-owner of Sterling Heights Financial Group, which is an independent financial firm here in Pittsburgh. We handle anything from any type of insurance to investments and business planning, and then do consulting as well. So that's me in short.
Fantastic. So you're right. This whole idea of this Instagram Live is to provide benefit to small business people, primarily realtors, because that's where I work.
Sure.
What we're going to cover today is what should a realtor be doing with their finances pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, and we're going to call COVID a rainy day, hence the title of this episode. Growing up, my mother would always say, save this for a rainy day. One day there'll be a rainy day. I'm like, never gonna be a rainy day. But now we have a rainy 60 days or a month and a half. Let me tell you, I'm glad I listened to her. So I'm gonna bring you in. So realtors, those of you realtors out there that are just starting in the business or been in it and haven't really turned over a substantial amount of income or decent income, we can't, this Instagram Live interview isn't about making you money. This is about once you start making some money, what should you do with it? So even if you're just starting and you're just starting to make a little bit of money, Doug and I are going to give you some tips and tricks on what you should be doing with it. One of the things you should not be doing with it is buying a Tesla Model 3 cash when you finally start selling some properties. Would you agree, Doug?
I would have to agree. And this is actually good because a lot of my clients are realtors. So I'll say that this is kind of my bread and butter type conversation. So hopefully I can answer a lot of the questions that you and your audience might have. But yeah, so the first thing that I think about is I use the approach that Mark Cuban actually created, which is how can you kick your own ass? And what that means essentially is what's the worst things that can happen in your business or with your finances, and then protect against that happening. So I'm extremely conservative just by nature, whether it be for my businesses or my finances or for my clients, in that I think of what are the worst case possibilities, and I want to prepare for that first, so that when something does happen, worst case scenario, you're just having a bad day or a bad month, as opposed
Right,
to
and let me interrupt you for 1 second. What that basically means is don't finance a whole bunch of things that you can't afford to pay off or come close to paying off. If a rainy day would come into play. So you don't want to have a car, school loans, rental property that you're renting. You don't actually own rental properties, a Rolex watch, and a $2,000 suit. You don't want to be paying on all those things, right?
Very, very simple rule is I only buy things that make me an income or increase in value. And I'm being like, to the point of like, I don't know if I need to buy food. I don't know if I need to pay for it. Like, I'm like all the way there. So obviously I'm a little bit insane on my end. You don't have to be at this side of the spectrum, but the thought process is really simple. Is only focus on spending money on things that will either generate an income for you or increase in value. Because as people are going to start to see is times like this, people haven't seen a real recession since 2008. And this is crazy because it came out of nowhere essentially and shut down the entire world. So if you don't have something stashed away, you could literally be washed out in a matter of months. So the things we have to are luxury items like luxury vehicles, watches, high-end clothing, all these things, and you don't have anything that's actually increasing in value. You're not going to be able to sell those things in this market. The first thing that goes in any market downturn is the luxury market, which is luxury real estate, luxury clothing brands, luxury vehicles, because when you don't have money, you're not going to go buy an Audemars, right? You're not going to go out and buy a $200 steak dinner. You're going to be thinking, how can I save every dollar possible and only buy the necessities? So those markets, as you're seeing probably in Miami, are deflating in a sense, right? You've seen it in New York, you've seen it in LA. There's just, common economic cycles, but it's going to happen much faster when something crazy like the COVID-19 happens.
And let's face it, luxury is a want. It is not a need.
100%.
Right, and I think you have to demonstrate restraint. Like the things that I own now, I restrained from buying them out of the gate, like I'm trying to teach other people. That was my why. That was my goal. It wasn't like a goal down here. It was a big goal up here.
Sure. Yeah, and that's the thing is you have to sacrifice to become successful. And people don't understand that. Like your first win, your first $10,000 payday, you don't go out and blow all that money. You live just as broke as if you made $10,000 a year. Like to this day, I'm currently living in an investment property I just bought because I wanted to lower my expenses instead of renting a higher end apartment in Mount Washington. I actually did not sign the lease. I was supposed to move in April, and I decided to move into an investment property, fix it up while I'm living here on this shutdown, save money. My monthly expenses will be cut in half. I don't know what's going to happen with this. Worst case scenario, I can hold on to this for 3 years without working. So that's kind of the approach I'm taking. Is even though I've built financial security and I have many investments and income producing options, I'm still living broke because I'm not to that point where I just have I'll call it stupid money, where you have millions and millions of dollars invested producing six figures without leaving the couch. Once that happens, then yeah, buy the Rolex, buy the Bentley. Like, it doesn't matter at that point. But you can't get to that level without making the sacrifices like this.
Right, and I think, and that's how I got my real estate licenses. I flipped houses, and I would live in those houses as I worked on them. I would wake up in the morning. Some didn't even have heat. They didn't have a kitchen for months. And I would be trying to sell a house as a realtor out of there. But let's go back to the luxury thing. You shouldn't be buying anything luxury, in my opinion, until you have expendable cash. Expendable cash would mean you don't rent a property. You own a house or condo or townhouse, and it's paid off. You have credit card debt that comes in and gets paid off automatically. You are producing income with your career. I'm going to stick with realtors. You're a realtor, and you have the pipeline full. Right? Your car is paid off. You don't have any student debt. You have no debt. That's whenever, in my opinion, you should actually even consider looking at luxury.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And there's the argument that you have to look the part in real estate and in sales, right? Get a decent. I have an Infinity, right? It's I bought it used. I would suggest anyone's looking to buy a nice car, any luxury brand, buy it used, a couple years old, less than 20,000 miles, just as well. It'll look just as pretty. And I think my car retails at like 40 grand. I was all in at like 24,000.
Nice.
You would never tell the difference, right?
Right.
So you could still buy, decent items. Just be smart about it. Don't pay retail price. Don't buy something, a brand new car that the second you take it off the lot, it depreciates by 20%. Focus on how can you be cheap and be, how can you more or less finesse it to get luxury items at a discount. So you want to look professional. I understand that. But to your point, you don't want to just be throwing money immediately because you had a couple good months, because now people are finally realizing that it's not always going to be good. People psychologically tend to be way too optimistic when times are good and never think something bad can happen. And then when something bad happens, they'll think it'll be like that forever. So the one thing I've tried to switch my mentality a long time ago is I actually focus on when times are good, I'm actually extremely conservative. Like until I bought this property, I haven't bought anything for like at least a year. I didn't find a whole lot of stock investments. I was just building up cash, honestly, to stash away for a rainy day and focus on an opportunity like this. So it's that mentality, right? You're not always going to win. You're not always going to lose, but you need to be, conscious of both things occurring without you planning.
100%. Now let's give them some physical takeaways, some tips and tricks here. I'm a realtor. I've been in business, maybe a year or two, and I'm selling 5 million GCI, so I'm probably making about 100 grand a year. What should I be doing?
Yep. So my little blueprint, I guess you could say, for realtors is the very first thing is take your monthly income. Now, obviously, you're going to be like me, right, where you might have a 5-figure month, and then next month you might actually lose money. So take the average. If you have some track record, you could take the last 12 months and average that out, right? Let's say that equates to $10,000 per month that's hitting your bank. Now, immediately take out all of your necessities each month. So that's your, mortgage, rent, utilities, insurances, food, only the necessities. I'm not talking about buying new clothes, going out to eat, going on vacation. That's not included. Take out all those necessities, and whatever's left over, that's going to be your monthly cash flow. I have a 20% rule. I absolutely will not waver from taking 20% of that number every single month and reinvesting it into something, whether it be into retirement accounts, into savings, paying down high interest debt, into your business. Whether you're making money or losing money, you still have to take that every single month and pay yourself first. So that's the very first rule as far as taking your extra income. The other thing is, with being a realtor, you have a very volatile income, and there's months where you might not make any money. So my normal rule of thumb for people is to take 5 to 6 months of those necessities and have that sitting in cash at any point in time. So an absolute minimum. So if your expenses are $5,000 a month, the lowest cash balance you should have is about 25 grand. Okay. Now for a realtor or a business owner, I would actually suggest having even more than 5 or 6 months. Because one, you can get hit with an expense at any point in time. The market could shut down at any point in time, right? I mean, just this week, I got hit with like $2 grand in expenses for properties and business expenses that I wasn't expecting. If I didn't have money stashed away, with losing income during COVID and having something like that pop up, I could easily have gone bankrupt, right? So as a business owner or a realtor, you need to stash at least 6 months of your expenses at all times. So those are my 2 rules as far as planning goes. Hopefully that answers your question for realtors.
Yeah, it does. And I guess that kind of may even be the same answer as to the question, we're in this COVID-19. What should I be doing with my finances? Or maybe you have a different answer as a realtor, because, we may have some residual sales that are creeping in. We may have 1 or 2 sales going under contract now that aren't going to close in the foreseeable future. So what should I be doing with my money now as a realtor?
Bring down the hatches. I would go as conservative as possible. So I would try to refinance any high interest debt. I would try to I would try to get any financing that you can from any of the SBA programs, the payroll protection plan. If you have lines of credit that you need to access, anything that you can do to get your debts or your expenses reduced is the first thing. Looking into getting new insurances, right? New car insurance, life insurance, health insurance, anything that can cut your bills down. Stop ordering food out. Obviously, you can't go out to eat. Stop ordering food out. Start shopping at a discount stores like Aldi instead of, Giant Eagle. Don't buy any new clothes. Like I'm saying, live broke. Literally live as if you were broke. That's the first thing. Forget about pride. Forget about looking good. That doesn't matter at all at times like this. So that'd be my first point of advice is cut every possible expense that you can. And then hopefully you should have planned accordingly. The real estate market has been so good, not to downplay people's abilities, but anyone has been able to sell property the past 3 years. That obviously with seeing all the realtors coming out of nowhere. So hopefully they've, stashed some money aside during that time frame. But if you didn't, honestly adapt. If you need to take a job at Walmart, do it. Pride doesn't matter right now, right? Amazon's hiring, Walmart's hiring, Giant Eagle's hiring. Maybe you can get your notary license and do closings for some of your clients. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can do. If someone said, hey, you're going to die if you don't find a way to make money next month, you'd find a way to make money, right?
100%.
It's just one of those things. It's either you don't want to do it or your pride is taking it over. And in times like this, if you're a realtor and you have no way of producing income, you have no investments, and you're just in a tough spot, you got to live broke and find a way to generate money, even if it's online. I mean, there's so many opportunities online to do that right now.
Right, and I'm going to throw a tip out there. I recommend steal gasoline. I mean, if your neighbor is parked next to you, siphon that shit out and put it in your car.
Gas prices are going down pretty far, so I'm hoping that people don't need to steal gas.
When I was a youth, I may or may not.
I don't know how much juice that takes.
Not much. When I was a youth, I may or may not have siphoned gasoline out of a car, but that's a different story. So basically, I'm going to touch on something you talked about. Is it in personally, and we should all have a family budget. I like to tell my buyers where how much your cable bill is, how much your school debt is, how much your dog food is. Everybody likes to have dogs. So you're also saying you should have a business budget as well. And I tell agents that all the time, you need to know where your money is going. Your Supra is $14.95 a month. Your MLS dues, your desk fees, you need to add all that up so you know how much income you need to have if we're going to roll into a rainy day. And I don't know if I would jump into getting a job at Amazon now. I mean, we are getting close to going back to work. I mean, by the time you get a job and work a week, you're going to have to quit it. They are talking about keeping it.
That's an extreme case. But
yeah.
I guess that's my point is I see people that are like, I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills and the money's not coming in. I'm like, well, I mean, you got to find a way to do it, right? You can complain on Facebook all you want, but that's not going to help.
Right. And as of now, at the time of this, we're doing this interview, I think I saw Governor Wolf said he's going to open things up on the 8th of May.
On the 8th, yeah.
Which is different than the first, so he pushed it back another week, and I think that's great. Okay, so we did pre-corona, during corona. What about post-corona? We're getting ready to come out of this in 3 weeks and go back to work and start hopefully generating some more income. What should I have learned as a realtor? Again, I shouldn't be going out and spending money on a car. I should be going out and buying an investment property. Maybe now that's a question I had for you. I think I even did ask you that. Let's just say I have all this school loan, school debt. Should I still, once I start making some money, is it wise to go out and buy an investment property, or is it more wise to pay off the student debt with it carrying interest?
So I have kind of like a step, it's like a stairway as far as going from investment to investment. The first thing that I focus on obviously is having that emergency savings. Once you get to that point, I wouldn't even consider investing if you don't have at least 5 months of your expenses in cash. So
that's a good number.
The realtor's done that, right? They had a good couple months. The next thing is your question on the debts. Does it make sense to pay down a debt versus make an investment? Let's not even say properties. Let's just say make an investment in general.
Right.
Right. So if your debt, first is what is the debt actually? What is the collateral on that debt? So is it an investment property that can increase in value and generate money? Or is it a school loan, which is literally a piece of paper that does nothing for you? Not saying not saying that getting a degree is bad, but the actual degree itself does nothing. So that is the first thing, is you want to try and knock out any of the debts that have collateral that do not increase in value or have the ability to produce an income, like a business loan or a commercial loan for a property. The next is, what is the actual interest rate? So can you refinance those loans to get the interest rates reduced? And then at that point in time, you'll have an apples to apples comparison. If you have a way that you could generate 10% with some investment over here versus a 3% loan, I'm going to generally invest that money. Now, I'm not saying don't pay down the loan, still knock out, maybe make an extra payment each month, or do as much as you can there, but I'm going to be focused on the opportunity cost that I'm giving up 10% to knock out 3%, right? It doesn't really make that much sense to me. And then your next thing was, does it make sense to buy, investment properties? The first investment I always tell people to do is invest in the financial markets first. And the reason I do so is, one, they're liquid and accessible, meaning I can click a button and cash out of my investments at any point in time and have money in my account. All right. So if something like this happens and you need a quick 20,000, you can literally click a button online. Money will be sent in a few days. You can't click a button and sell an investment property right now, right? You can't turn house into cash. So liquidity needs or access to money is huge. The other thing is, if you don't know anything about investing, you might need guidance. So in the financial markets, there's people that manage the funds. There's advisors like myself. There's enough information and literally passive investment options that you could just throw money, have the professionals manage it, and then hopefully increase in value. Once you have some assets in the financial markets, now you have your safety net with cash. You now have investment vehicles that are hopefully increasing in value that you could tap into if you really needed it, and that also can be used as collateral for real estate. So now you have all these liquid assets that if life happens, you can tap into it, click a button, and cash out. Now at that point in time, I say gung-ho, go all out, go ahead, buy investment properties, whether it be flips or rental properties, commercial deals, whatever it is, because now you can have access to illiquid assets, because you have this huge safety net that if things go wrong over here, you can tap out of some of that money that you've built and use it for this venture. Because the one thing is, rental properties aren't like you sign a deal and then you immediately start making $800 a month.
Right.
Like I said, I had about $2,000 in expenses from a roof leak, drywall repair, and an overage on a construction project in a week, right? Wow. So if you have 10 grand set aside for a rental property, and you're like, okay, the numbers make sense, that 10 grand is going to go to 14 grand within a year probably. So if you don't have that money stashed away, now you're in an even worse spot.
And I think that's like, and we already talked about it a little bit, that's one of the hardest things is to have restraint. You talk about stashing away money in an emergency fund. That is, having restraint is hard, especially whenever you do, like the spring market comes and we're just getting all these checks stuffed into our bank account. That's when you gotta really, you gotta suffer. You gotta suffer from restraint.
You have to save yourself from yourself, which is why what I've implemented with my financial clients is we just have it on autopilot. We come up with a monthly budget that makes sense for them to stash away each month, and it's coming out of your account whether you like it or not. It's almost like a bill.
I like that.
So that's, honestly, it's a psychology play. Most people don't have the restraint. I'm a very conservative person and I don't really have emotion with money. I don't need a lot luxury items. I love luxury items, but I don't need it. Yep. So I personally don't have to do that for myself, but most people, whenever they get paid, they immediately say, okay, I got to buy, new shoes. I got to go out to eat. I got to go buy a bottle at the bar. It's like, you kind of have to save yourself from yourself in that sense, especially when times are good, because you're just going to assume that times are going to stay good forever.
Yeah, and make those things rewards. I've been coached before, and they say it's okay if you want to buy some of that stuff, but you just got to make sure it's a reward. And again, not here. Right. It's a reward like way up here. Like you didn't just convert one VISBO to a listing, which haven't even sold yet. You've reached a $2 million gross income, or a GCI, or $5 million year over year. That's whenever you treat yourself to these nicer things. If your tailpipe's not hanging off your car, you don't need to buy a new car.
Right. Unless it's literally something that needs to be bought, like your car is literally run down to the point that you need to buy a new vehicle, sure, that makes sense. But just because you've made an extra 50 grand a year doesn't mean you need to change your lifestyle to an extra 50 grand a year, right? You don't need to change from an Invicta watch to a Rolex watch because you made $25,000 extra. And I like what you said is you need to sacrifice more. So for me personally, until I have at least $1 million net worth and have $1 million invested, I'm not going to start buying nice things. Until I can make about 100 grand a year without leaving my couch, I'm going to continue my same standard of living, which is
Beautiful.
living cheap, you know, having pretty nice things, but not doing anything crazy, and just continuing to sacrifice. So I think you're spot on with that. A lot of people will just take their one payday, you know, that $1 million home that was out of nowhere that they got, that lead came in. It's not really common. And they take that $20,000 and they immediately blow it. You know, I just don't think that, I don't think you deserve to at that point. You haven't sacrificed.
Right, I totally agree. You haven't earned the right to spend that. I hate to say, even though it is your money. So let's talk about some products and investments that realtors should be investing in that's going to save themselves from themselves. And I'm going to start off. I'm going to open up with a SEP. Every year, realtors, I max out my SEP. That's the first thing I do before I buy anything at all. So, Doug, what does SEP stand for, and what is it for a realtor?
Yeah, so I'll preface by saying first that I'm not going to give any individualized investment advice, but for general purposes, I love SEP and traditional IRAs for realtors. A lot of my clients have them, and the reason being is as a real estate agent, you are a business owner. You're self-employed, so that means you are dependent on yourself for your retirement and your employee benefits. You don't have anyone stashing money away to 401k. No one's paying for your life insurance or your health insurance. So you need to come up with ways to provide that for yourself. So IRA, we'll just say IRAs in general. So there's what's called a SEP IRA. It's basically a business owner IRA, individual retirement account. And then there's what's called a traditional IRA. And really the main difference is basically how much money you can deposit into them. There's different maximums and as far as the contributions that you can make. So SEP IRA changes each year for inflation. But basically you as a realtor or a self-employed person, you can take the lesser of 25% of your income up to, for 2020, I believe it's $56,000 that you can contribute and get a tax break on every dollar that you put in. Now, if you don't make a whole lot of money, maybe it's your first couple years in real estate, you're only making $20,000. You might want to focus on what's called just a regular traditional IRA, which you can contribute a much smaller amount into, but you don't have to worry about owning a business or being self-employed or anything like that. Now, the reason these are great is because the money that you put in is a tax break for this year, and every realtor struggles with owing money at the end of the year. Even if you're making quarterly payments, like when you're a business owner, you hate tax time. W-2 employees, people working 9 to 5, they love tax time, right? Business owners, we run away from April 15th is the worst day of the year, right?
Unless you found an extension or 3.
Yeah. So that's where, as a realtor, having one of these plans, it actually kills 2 birds with 1 stone. One is you're stashing away money that you need to anyway in investing, for the long term. But 2, you're getting a tax break to do it. So there's absolutely no reason why you shouldn't have one of these plans. There's no minimum contributions. There's only maximums. So if your business ends up not doing as well as you think it will, just don't put any money into it.
And those are temporary tax breaks. So you get hit with tax and you use it when you pull the money out when you're 65 or 70.
Correct.
Right?
You get a tax break today. The money grows tax deferred, the whole tax vested, meaning whenever you're investing, the growth is not taxed until you pull it out in retirement at age 59 and a half.
Right, and you brought up a key point. If you don't make a lot of money, and I just wanted to expose people to this concept, because when I got my real estate license, my broker didn't explain to me what a SEP was. Or an IRA or anything. You got to learn this shit on your own. So even if you are, and I talk to a lot of new agents, I mean, first time just got their license, think about getting their license, and you're not making any money, guys, and I understand that, but I wanted to have it in the back of your brain, so whenever you start making 10 million GCI, 250,000 a year, you're not just going out there and buying luxury items, you're maxing out your SEP first, or your IRA, whatever it is. What's SEP stand for again?
Simplified Employee Pension Plan.
Okay, wasn't even close.
SEP sounds way better.
Yeah, I like it. I have a little SEP. Okay. Another thing I want to point out that I have done, and was taught to me, is I created a corporation. So let's just say I'm Brian Sells Pittsburgh Real Estate Incorporated. So I'm the only member of my corporation, and RE/MAX pays all of my paydays to Brian Sells Pittsburgh incorporated. So if I make $500,000 a year, I only pay myself a salary of $50,000 a year. You get taxed on the lower amount.
Correct.
Correct?
Yep.
So again, for those newer agents,
I'll just say, having an entity makes a ton of sense too, because you have so many business expenses that you can write off, including your salary expense, right? So you can actually find additional deductions on your taxes just by structuring it that way. Now, I'm not gonna say it definitely makes sense for the person that only sold a few properties, but you know, someone that's excelling and doing well, where you have wealthy people problems, which is you have tax problems. That makes a ton of sense. So I agree with that.
Yeah, again, if you are an agent that's making a lot of money and you don't have an entity, you're just getting paid to your name by your broker. It's not about, I always say to everybody, it's not about how much money I make. It's about how much money can I keep in my pocket.
How much you take home, yep.
Absolutely. So if you're a newer agent and you're only selling $2 million a year and you're making $20,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year, this may not be for you starting a corporation yet, because it does cost a little bit of money. But again, put it in the back of your brain. There's two things I want you to remember, and that is that IRA SEP and the creating an entity whenever you do finally start making some money. And I've talked to some realtors that weren't making any money. Then years later, I talked to them again and asked if they've done it. And they're like, "Oh, I'm too busy." I'm like, "Man, you are leaving so much money on the table. You might as well take the time and not make those 2 sales just to be able to create that entity for the rest of your life."
Yeah, the one thing I found with working with so many realtors is they're laser focused on their business, which as any business owner you should. But if you don't want to take the time to learn all these things, like you've taken some time to educate yourself, a lot of people don't want to do that, and that's fine. But build a team around you, right? Get a solid accountant, get a solid advisor, get a solid insurance guy, banker. Like if I do the same thing with my business. I know that I can't do everything. I want to understand everything, but I'm not going to have the skill set to do every single part. So find people that you trust that you can add to your team and just outsource it. You would be amazed at how much time you free up and how much focus you can have on your business if you don't have little things, miscellaneous things in the back of your head. Instead, just hand it off to somebody and say, take care of this for me, and educate me on what you're doing and why you're doing it.
That's right. I mean, that's what you don't understand. When you get your real estate license, you're 1099. You're a business owner. Welcome to being a business owner. If you haven't taken any business owner classes, you just got to figure that out on your own, or get hire a third party that knows what they're doing. It's going to save money in the end.
Yeah, exactly. And even give a little bit of, I always say to realtors that I like the idea of them joining teams or working with established agents like yourself. If I was a realtor, I mean, I did this when I started out with my financial practice back when I was working at New York Life. I would work with more established advisors that would take 50%. I would give it to them all day just to help and learn from them. You know what I mean? So
that's a fantastic point.
Yeah, whether it's working with other agents that are more established, or building a team around you that is additional expenses that are coming out of your profits, you have to pay in order to either save time or to get to the next level with your business.
Right, and I've had multiple conversations with a multitude of agents, and they ask me new agents, what they should do. And the first thing, as I say, is try to get on a team. Try to get on a team, because they've already made those mistakes. They have a team formed around underneath them because they have achieved a level of success, and they probably went this way to get to the level of success where you could just go straight.
3 years. Yep.
Right, you could just go straight up. They already made the mistakes. Why recreate the wheel?
I agree, and it comes down to the short-term versus long-term thinking. So there's just 2 different mindsets. Some people are willing to sacrifice and eat shit, so to speak, and not worry about the money for 5 years and not care about what car they're driving because they see the end goal 10 years from now. And then there's others that they're only in this because they saw, the flashy lifestyle, and they think they can get there in 2 years, and if it doesn't happen, then they don't want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, when I got my Lamborghini, I had all kind of people call me, and they just thought it was easy. They thought Lamborghinis grew on trees. You just get your real estate license, and he hands you the license and the keys to a Lamborghini.
As soon as you pass the exam, they walk you out, and you choose a Bentley, Ferrari, or a Lambo.
I missed that school. So, listen, I think you touched on it, but again, if you could go back over it, how much income supply should we have? How many months supply should we have as a realtor for a rainy day? And keep in mind, realtors, at least my business, I can speak of my business only, when this all pause button got hit, there were no more sales going on, but there were also minimal expenses. Like my expenses are almost nothing now. Professional photos, videos. I mean, we stopped doing all that stuff because we don't have any business. So,
Sure.
what is the general consensus of how much I should have in my bank account to make it through a rainy day?
So I'm going to phrase it like this. For a business owner in general, obviously as a realtor, you're a business owner, I would say a minimum of 6 months of your necessities needs to be in cash at all times. So that can include your mortgage, your rent, insurances, utilities, food, gas, phone bill, your basic business expenses if you pay, like Zillow or Realtor or your MLS fees, lockbox, all that stuff, right? Anything that is coming out, whether you like it or not, basically, it's non-negotiable. This is coming out of your bank account. Take 6 months at a minimum and stash that in your emergency fund. Once you get there, no more money in there, everything else gets invested. So the next step would be investing into things that are accessible if you need them, but are going to pay a higher interest than your 0.05% PNC bank account, right? They might have tax benefits. They're accumulating some kind of growth, but you can still tap into them if you need them. And then you build your long-term savings, which is things like the SEP, your IRAs, investing in real estate, investing in businesses. These are things that are not accessible, that you can't easily turn to cash, but they're going to generally be the highest returns. They're going to give you the best tax breaks because you're extending when you're accessing your money, and just scale up from there. So 6 months, once you check that off your box, talk to someone like me or do some research online and get to the point where you start investing into things that will actually generate an income or appreciate for you. And then get into the big boy things like buying properties and businesses and private equity, all these other things that, are kind of down the road. But I guess that would be my blueprint for a real estate agent.
Yeah, I like it. And I have a lot of people that are just out of the gate and they're like, oh, I want to start buying investment properties. I'm like, well, let's look at all your other debt first.
And I mean, I don't want to discourage anyone from buying investment properties. Obviously, I do. But the difference is I've seen some successful people and I've seen people go bankrupt from it. The difference between buying a rental property, or we'll say real estate, versus any other investment in the financial markets. So whether that's like, loans, mortgage-backed securities, bonds, stocks, mutual funds, anything like that, is in real estate, if you are investing in a property and you lose all the investment because you've went through your budget, tenant didn't pay rent, whatever it may be, the bills don't stop. So let's say that you stash 20 grand away to buy that property. You can throw your 20 grand away, but guess what? The mortgage still needs paid. The utility bills are still coming in. Even after that 20 is gone, you still have bills, coming in. Whereas in the financial world, if you spend 20 grand and somehow all of that investment goes away, it's done. You lost your 20 grand, that's it. That's the difference. So just people need to be cognizant of that. I'm not saying that rental properties are bad. I think they're a fantastic investment vehicle, but I would focus on leveraging both of them because there's not one perfect place to put your money. And there is an absolute downside to owning real estate when times get tough, AKA now. If you were someone that had like 10 high interest loans right now and a bunch of projects going on, you literally have no way to complete those projects. Those interest rates are extremely high. You can't cash out of these properties because the market's basically dead right now. What would you do, right? So that's where it comes to having that accessible investment vehicles that you could still cash out in a moment's notice. The stock market, even though it's been going up and down, it's still open. I can cash out if I need to. You know what I mean?
Right. A couple of rules I live by is I never finance anything I couldn't pay off or come close to paying off when I start financing it within a really short period of time. And I don't ever invest in anything that if I lost it, it would break me completely. It would hurt.
I like both of those. I'm a very old school. The only things I will use debts on is something that can appreciate in value that I can leverage. So for instance, the only debts, I have a small loan on my car still, but besides that, the only debts I've ever had is on rental properties.
Right, which is
I'm the same way. Credit cards, if you're using someone with your credit card, only use it if you could pay the whole thing off by the end of the month. I mean, that's just the way to live by, because the biggest way that people go under is from debts. It's not because necessarily business goes bad. It's because of debts. And you know, people over leverage and they take on more than they can handle. And when anything goes bad, yeah, you were able to handle it when everything was going good. But when one domino falls, that's when everything starts going. And then you're trying to get a loan from Bill to pay Jim to pay Susie. And then that's when you get in too deep. So, you know, there's one way of using everything as cash. I'm not a fan of doing that just because you can leverage with cheap debt for assets. But I'm also not a fan of getting a loan on everything and saying, oh, I'll find a way to pay it, right? It should be something that's extremely easy for you to pay each month.
Right. All right, so that's going to wrap it up. We gave a lot of information. Let's review some of the key points, you and I. First thing I would say is that I thought was really important, I want realtors to understand, is have a 6-month cushion basically in have an emergency fund, first of all, then have a 6-month cushion in there for a rainy day.
Absolutely.
What other? Give me something.
For a realtor, my 20% rule is, whether you like it or not, take 20% of your monthly cash flow and reinvest it into something that will help your financial future. So what a lot of realtors like to do is utilize an IRA or some kind of retirement vehicle because they already don't have one. It gives them a tax break, which they generally will need, and it's forcing you to save and invest every single month. So I like the 20% rule, whether it be going to your business, paying down a high interest debt, investing it, insurances. Just use that as a rule of thumb. Some people might say, I got way more than 20% of my cash flow that I could put away. Some people say, I don't think I could squeak out 20%, but it's a really good rule of thumb that you can go home and check with your personal finances and see if it's something palatable for you.
Right. Guys, this is where you should have a pencil and writing this stuff down. So 20% rule, emergency fund, create an entity, a corporation once you start making some money, a SEP or an IRA for sure. Rainy day fund, don't charge or finance anything you can't pay off or come close to paying off for a rainy day. Anything else I think we covered that I'm missing?
Keep your expenses low. I mean, no need to get fancy with it. I can't even say that I've paid more than $1,000 in any marketing costs all of 2020. Right. In any of my, like all my businesses combined. There's so many different ways that you can, you know, generate business inexpensively. You know, understand the basics of video editing. Get a decent. I mean, we're doing this on our iPhone. It's great quality. Get some good lighting and start making some video content. You know, going to happy hours, going to events, social media marketing. Obviously, you could do the paid advertisements, but just doing things that you can cut your costs down. It doesn't have to be fancy. You don't have to say, okay, I made, you know, $8,000 this month. Now I'm going to spend $2,000 on something that you could have done yourself anyway, just because you have money coming in. Now, obviously, when you get to a level like you know, make that for outsourcing because you have so much deal flow and you're, you know, in a luxury brand, so your stuff has to be premium. But for the average everyday realtor, I mean, you don't have to overextend with your monthly bills. You can continue to live cheap even with your business, you know, just by being smart on how you're allocating that money.
Yeah, or just get on a team and let the team leader pay for all that.
Heck yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
Right. I think we gave a lot of good tips. Hopefully these realtors are going to be able to get some from this. I'm going to post this just about everywhere over the next week, and I'm going to put all of Doug's contact info in there, and I'm going to give this to Doug, and he can post it everywhere as well so people can rewatch a couple times. If you have any questions, don't contact me. I'm just a realtor. Contact Doug. He can, you know, meet with you one-on-one or have a phone call or get you started on a SEP if you don't have one, or an IRA. Can you do an entity? Can you create an entity for people?
I cannot. That would be an attorney.
Okay.
I do have some good contacts if people need them.
Perfect.
So yeah, I'm happy to help in that way as well.
Yeah, so anything we talked about today, if Doug can't do it, reach out to him and he can guide you to the people who can do it.
Absolutely. Cool. Absolutely.
Cool, brother.
Thanks
I appreciate
so much for having me on. Enjoy Florida. I'll be down there eventually hanging out with you, but
I'll bring you down. I'll bring you down with me. You stay safe, all right?
You too, buddy. Thanks.
See you guys.